Hello and welcome to another episode of Connected. This is episode number 570, and it's brought to you by OpenCase, Squarespace, and Fitbod. I'm John Voorhees, filling in for one or the other of Myke or Steven, and I have with me none other than the Ricky Benchman himself, Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Hello. You're filling in for both, so you have but
I'm feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders.
I know, but you can do it. We just had a really interesting conversation in the Pro Show for Connected Pro members. The first part was kind of philosophical, talking about user interfaces on mobile phones as almost video game rendering engines, and then John wanted to talk about low-tech life hacks, and we had plenty. So, yes, John, thank you for filling in. Obviously, Myke and Steven are busy with the preparation for the podcastathon. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Before we get to that, John, we have some follow-up.
We do.
Friend of the show, not Mark Gurman, NMG, is back. Now, Mark Gurman is back saying, home device with square display and AirPods 5 with cameras shipping next year. Both the home device and AirPods will include cameras that constantly monitor its surroundings. How do you guys feel about always-on cameras starting to spread more and more outside of Meta's sunglasses? Interesting rumor, an interesting question, especially on the heels of last night's Meta Connect event, where Meta announced multiple pairs of glasses with cameras, an update to the existing line of Meta Ray-Bans, but also the brand new Meta display glasses, like actual augmented reality glasses that have a little display in one of the lenses and project UI in front of your eyes. And those have cameras as well. Now, interesting rumor. So we know about the HomePod with a screen, and we knew that Apple was exploring the idea of AirPods with cameras. AirPods with cameras, I find this rumor quite strange, if only because I don't understand the engineering of it. Like, where exactly are you going to place these cameras?
I kind of feel like it's going to end up shooting video of things that are on the sides of you, which is probably not super useful, right? I mean, you're walking down the street and you can see to the left and right of you, but not in front of you. I just don't know where you'd put it. And I guess, look, Federico, the thing to me that I got to maybe take issue with NMG on this one is AirPods 5. I mean, we're on 3 now.
No. The regular AirPods, I think NMG is saying.
Oh, I see. I got it.
We got the AirPods.
My apologies.
We got the AirPods Pro 3 now, but we got the AirPods 5 next year with the cameras.
But we're going to put cameras in the low end model. Maybe.
I don't know. But also, like, I guess the idea is to have always on visual intelligence always available.
Yeah.
I guess that's the pitch, right? I would assume, obviously, you would need an iPhone always on you because, they cannot get Apple Intelligence to run on an Apple Watch, let alone inside AirPods. So you're gonna need an iPhone on you. And I guess the idea would be that you're looking at something, you can ask Siri a question about it, and it can use visual intelligence from your connected AirPods cameras. Maybe that's the pitch, right?
I guess. I got to imagine that if this is happening, especially with the AirPods, that the resolution of these cameras is going to be very low because in order for the batteries to last on AirPods while shooting and transferring video to an iPhone, seems to me like that's a really big technical challenge in terms of both bandwidth and just, battery.
Yeah, you're right. And also, I would be surprised if Apple lets you take pictures with this, actually. I don't think... my hot take here is that if they're going to do this, these cameras, you're not going to be able to use them to take photos. They're just going to be visual intelligence cameras. Because
that makes sense
because, like, we know, for example, with the Meta glasses, that you can take pictures, but the LED has to be always on whenever you take a picture. So is Apple going to, if you're going to take pictures with these AirPods 5, are your ears going to be illuminated all the time? Because they got to have an LED to tell people that you're taking pictures. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I think that there is some benefit to having an always on camera. I mean, think about, let's just assume that these things would be able to see just your surroundings in general as you go about your day. It would be like, it could tell you, oh, you think to yourself, where did I leave my iPhone? And your AirPods, maybe you left it in your bedroom next to, on a bedside table, and now you can find it. It's like, little things like that, or maybe it's not even like technology where you could use something like Find My Anyway, but it's something like, where did I leave my keys to my car? Did I leave them on the table in the front entryway, or did I leave them in the kitchen, or where did I put them? And that kind of stuff could be kind of useful, I think. But I do think that there are boundaries where people are going to have a problem with this. I mean, do you want to wear these into them? There's various places maybe you don't want to have these. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
The smaller rooms of your house, like your bathroom, for instance.
Yeah. Would you put a HomePod with a screen in there?
No, I mean, do you really want that in your bedroom? Probably not. There's a lot of things that I don't know. I think, like, if I had a HomePod with a camera in it on my kitchen counter where I'm either cooking or sitting somewhere nearby eating a meal, that's probably fine. But is this also recording my voice? Is this picking up every detail of everything I talk to with my family? There's a lot of issues there, not that go even beyond just the fact that it's video. It's just like potentially absorbing more information than people would necessarily want to give it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, as we know, it is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and we've been doing this. The Myke and Steven started this years ago, relay for St. Jude, and this is obviously one of the most important weeks of the year. It is the most important time of the year, relay, and this is the seventh.
Yeah, it absolutely
This
is.
is the seventh year that the relay community is rallying together to support St. Jude. John, why don't you tell our listeners about it?
Yeah, so St. Jude, I think a lot of listeners probably already know, is based in Memphis, Tennessee, where Stephen and his family are from, and his son is a childhood cancer survivor, and so this is obviously something that's very close to him and to his family, but it goes well beyond the environs of Memphis, Tennessee, because St. Jude not only operates all throughout the United States, but they work with hospitals and researchers worldwide to help bring healthcare to kids all around the world. And it extends beyond just the treatment of cancer. It also extends to some of the financial difficulties that families find themselves in when they have a child with cancer, because obviously that sort of thing can really be a drain on people financially. And St. Jude really makes that easier by taking care of a lot of those expenses. And, Relay's been doing just an amazing job for 7 whole years, raising money for this incredibly important cause. And this week, the podcastathon is happening. It's happening on Friday, noon Eastern time, which is my time zone. But, check your calendars and your time zone apps to get the time in your area. And they're going to be doing shenanigans and hijinks. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Shenanigans and hijinks. That will be for a very good cause to help people to raise money for St. Jude. Now, over this course of 7 years, they're closing in on $4.5 million, which is just like mind-boggling to me that Relay has done this. I mean, it just really, I think, to me, confirms what a strong community Relay has, and the people in it who really care about this cause and rally together to do more than just like, Myke and Steven could do on their own by donating their money, but also raising money on their own, because you can do that as part of this, and participating through listening to the shows and talking to their friends and employers to get matching gifts and all that sort of thing. So be sure to check out the podcastathon on Friday at noon Eastern. And if you haven't donated yet, just go to the website and check it out, because you can go to stjude.org/relay and make a donation, because any amount goes a long way. I mean, it's really important to get these donations in and help the kids. And really, no donation is too small to be part of this. And tell your friends about it, because we're closing out. We're halfway through September, and they're going to be doing this for the rest of the month. And it'd be really cool if we could raise even more money than ever before for St. Jude.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by OpenCase. The new iPhone is here, and if you want a case that truly takes advantage of MagSafe, you need to know about OpenCase. It's a patented iPhone case with a literal open space in the back of the case. So here's what makes this stand apart. Here's why it's cool. It means that your accessories are not going to slide around and shear off. The border of the open space cradles MagSafe accessories and prevents them from sliding off during everyday use. It also reduces bulk and weight. Because the accessory sits inside the case instead of top of it, it means the whole thing has a thinner profile and a lighter weight than usual. And it optimizes MagSafe charging. Apple recommends not placing anything between your phone and the charger, and with OpenCase, you can charge with nothing in the way. Plus, there's no lock-in. OpenCase has its own suite of accessories that fit perfectly, but it should also work with most third-party MagSafe accessories that fit. And it can even create a stand on the go. You know how we love kickstands on this show. The open space makes a ledge where you can wedge an accessory like a wallet for an impromptu stand. And it reveals the beauty of Apple's design. Unlike traditional cases that cover everything up, OpenCase lets you enjoy the color, especially orange, of your new iPhone while still keeping it protected. I love this idea. I use a MagSafe wallet, and having it slide off as you try to put your phone in your pocket really stinks. And with this ledge in the OpenCase, it means it's going to stay secure. OpenCase is thinner, lighter, prevents accessories from shearing off, optimizes MagSafe charging, and more. It's the case for MagSafe and the new iPhone 17. So go to theopencase.com and use the promo code CONNECTED for 10% off. That's theopencase.com, promo code CONNECTED for 10% off. Our thanks to OpenCase for their support of the show and all of Relay.
All right, John, I don't know if you noticed, but this website called Mac Stories published a whole bunch of reviews for operating systems.
I'm not familiar with their work.
Yeah, so it's a website where there's one guy from Italy that is actually pretty good, and all the other ones are like, passable.
Oh, really? Yeah, the guy from America, he's not so good. I know. He's just there because he's needed. I got it. All right. You gonna do this to me on review week, Federico?
No,
Come on.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I love you.
Me too. It's a big week, and we have the entire family of OS 26s are out for people. iOS,
We do.
iPadOS, macOS, tvOS, watchOS, macOS, visionOS. Those are 6 operating systems. There's also, technically speaking, there's Audio OS, which is not an official name. That is the software of the HomePods. And there's CarPlay, which is an iOS extension. So we're not going to count those. I am going to do something here. So we are going to put in the show notes, there's going to be links to all of the Mac Stories reviews that we've done, because, hey, we're hosting this episode, and so we're putting our own links. We can have it
all be about us.
No, 6 colors, Jason Snell thing going on. This is Connected. Me and John are doing Connected. It's all going to be full of Mac Stories links. I don't care.
All right.
But I am going to try something, which is I wrote about iOS and iPadOS. You wrote about macOS. You're going to get to ask me about the Mac. I'll ask you about iOS and iPadOS. John, what do you think of liquid glass on iOS and iPadOS?
I like it. I do find that liquid glass on the iPhone in particular can have legibility issues in places, especially in apps like Photos and Music, where you've got backgrounds that tend to be the backgrounds that Apple can't predict, and they can oftentimes be very different and busy. And so that can be a problem. But by and large, I like the liveliness of it. I like the organicness of it. And I think, I think when I first tried it in June, I thought, this is a style that might look dated pretty quickly. But I've sort of changed my mind on that. I still think that that's a possibility, that it'll just look like, 70s bell bottoms in the 90s. But I think maybe not. I think that maybe what we're seeing is the first steps into, as we talked about a little bit in the pro show, a more vibrant and more animated UI that will be something that we see more of in the future on all of Apple's devices, but not just Apple's. I think, this is kind of the direction I expect that we'll see other platforms go in more in the future.
Hmm. Have you ever been bothered by legibility issues, like contrast issues?
A little bit, a little bit. I mean, it's like I said, and sometimes in music, things will get a little funky. But and I've seen search bars that will, depending on the colors, if they're light colors in particular, sometimes the search bar will kind of disappear almost. And I do worry about people who maybe have lower vision, might have issues with that. I know I actually, this week, my dad called me and he was really concerned about iOS 26 because he had heard that it was a drastic change, and he wondered whether he would still be able to use his iPhone. And he was like, "Are they taking some of my apps away?" And I was like, "No, they're not taking your apps away. Are they changing how any of them work?" I'm like, well, no, not really. And so I texted him a bunch of the side by side screenshots that you had done between 18 and 26 and had him look at them. And his reaction to it was, "What's changed?" Because I suppose you could be accused of, even one of the problems with doing a review of design is people can say, well, you didn't pick out the best examples. I think you actually did pick out good examples of where things had changed, but the changes, as I explained to him, like, search bars moving to the bottom, and I explained to him the check marks replacing done, and a few other kind of very fundamental UI elements that I thought would be the kind of things that he would run into regularly. And he didn't have any problem with those. And I think that by and large, most people won't have problems with those. Although I do think people will run into at least some visual glitches here and there. I mean, I think it's just a system that hasn't been fully refined yet, and that it'll hopefully get better over the course of the 26.0 releases and on into the future, because I don't think liquid glass is like, I think we're seeing the start of liquid glass, not the end of liquid glass, and that liquid glass is going to be a design language that is going to get refined over at least the next 2 or 3 years easily.
What about the iPad for you?
The iPad for me, for me on the iPad, I find myself, despite the fact that I've been focused almost exclusively on macOS for the last 3 months, I found myself using my iPad Pro 11-inch more over the summer than I typically would during a Mac review season. I mean, typically in the summertime, I'm kind of tied to my desk, which is where I install the latest beta and live in it day after day. And when I did have a break from testing macOS, I would oftentimes take my iPad down to a local coffee shop and just catch up on things. And I really did find that having the windowing has made a world of difference, because it's not just me going to the coffee shop and checking my email and responding to a few people or reading a couple of articles in RSS. It's now I can go through the RSS and more easily take the URLs and drop them into Notion, and then maybe text you about them, and then check my email and get a piece of information from there, and then do some searches on the web. And it's just, you could do all those things before, but now with windowing, it's just easier to kind of set up an environment, even on a screen that's not the biggest one available on the iPad, and use those and move around those apps in a more productive way than I could before. And so I found myself just loving that and bringing it with me wherever I could to use it as much as possible. And I expect now that we are done with the review season, that's only going to increase for me. I'm going to be using it a lot more, not just, when I'm out and about, but also just around the house too.
And for context, aside from the review season, like in your day to day, what computers do you use for work in your setup?
Yeah, so I have a Mac Studio, an M1 Mac Studio
Mm.
is my main computer on my desk, and that's where like most of my Mac Stories work happens. I have a loaner MacBook Pro from Apple that's an M4 Max. That's an amazing laptop, and I use that when I'm not at my desk. So when I'm not in review season, I move between those two quite a bit. And the laptop really is just what allows me to get away from sitting in the same chair all day in front of at a desk, whether I'm elsewhere in the house or away. And those are my main Macs. I've got a Mac Mini that I've been testing from Apple too, but it's not like something that I'm using constantly the way I am the other ones. And then I guess the iPad is like secondary for me.
Interesting. Okay. What do you want to know from me?
I want to know if you've tried Spotlight and where you think
Yes.
it might fit in your life.
Yes, I have tried it, and I think as soon as I have the time, because so right now I'm still using on loan from Apple an M3 Ultra Mac Studio, and I also have my own MacBook Pro, M4 Pro MacBook Pro. I only have Tahoe on the MacBook Pro because I was waiting for the final release to put it on the Mac Studio, which has been for the past few months my main production machine for recording podcasts, and so I wanted to have as stable an environment as possible. But I have Tahoe. I've had Tahoe on my MacBook Pro, which I use more than the Mac Studio since June, and I started.
Federico,
Yeah,
I am here to tell you that there's a problem with the M3 Ultra and getting Tahoe installed on it. That I
Really?
just read about this morning.
Really?
Yes, I read on Mac Rumors, and I can get you the link, that there's a bug that's preventing Tahoe from being installed on
Wow.
the M3 Ultra. Yeah.
Then it's gonna be stuck on Sequoia, I guess.
For a little bit. I mean, I expect that's something they'll clear up pretty quick.
Okay, interesting. I tried Spotlight on the MacBook Pro. And what I love about it, obviously, is the idea of triggering shortcuts from Spotlight, but also not just shortcuts, actions for apps and passing input to those actions. I have tried, for example, just when I set it up, I was like, hey, you know what? I never tried the integration with Spotlight and shortcuts. I just searched for add link because I knew that was the name of one of the good links actions for adding a link to your read later queue. I typed add, the add link action came up. I tabbed, and Spotlight selected the input field for that action. So that was the input parameter, right? The actual URL that you want to save. I pasted a link that I had in my clipboard, and instantly it was saved into my good links. I was like, oh, well, this is exactly how my interactions with shortcuts should be. Like, I didn't have to make a here's the thing, and why I think I'm gonna stop using Raycast in favor of Spotlight. Whenever I wanted to do that in the past and trigger that functionality with a shortcut, I would have had to, create a shortcut first up front.
Right. Even if it was only one action shortcut.
Even if it was only one action, I would have had to create it myself in the first place. Otherwise, Raycast couldn't have seen it in my... That's how the third-party integration with shortcuts works. Actually, I think Raycast is, abstracting all of the complexity from it. I just think it's using the default command line integration for shortcuts. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that integration only exposes the actual shortcuts in the user's library, not even the app shortcuts. Those are things that developers can bake into their apps and are only exposed in the Shortcuts app. They're not exposed to third-party developers via the Shortcuts CLI, the command line utility.
Although they are not exposed on the Mac in the Shortcuts app.
Wow.
Really? That is one of the differences. If you open up the Shortcuts app and you scroll to the bottom, you don't have the list.
Yeah, there you go. At least they are.
Who knows why? Because now
on iPhone and iPad, obviously you can see them.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, that's the thing. Spotlight is exposing essentially that.
But exactly. So Spotlight is giving you access to all of the individual actions, all of the actions that a third-party app or a built-in app supports in shortcuts. Those
Yeah.
can also be actions that you can trigger from Spotlight without manually creating a shortcut for them up front. And they support parameters. So the add link action in this case needs an actual link that you need to save into your Good Links app. You can just tab through it in Spotlight, and which is, by the way, a familiar interaction. The Raycast integration also works like that. You find the shortcut, you press tab, you tab into the input field. But in this case, you're not. Here's the key difference is that in Raycast, it's a simpler integration in that it's loading all of your shortcuts, and then you're just passing the input, right? The main input to the shortcut. With this integration in Spotlight, you're triggering individual actions, and you can pass input to specific parameters of the action.
Right.
So that is and like I would say like macOS Tahoe, Liquid Glass, like you wrote in your review, it's kind of there. Like it doesn't really bother me. Here's my hot take. And I've been, as you know, John, both you and I are very online, right?
Yes.
As people. I do not understand a lot of the time, and I'm not saying that those opinions are not valid, but I personally, I have limits. And one of my limits is I struggle to understand when I sometimes think that people get so upset about the most mundane things that I would never get upset about. And one of those things is people going absolutely crazy this summer over how horrible, terrible, devastating macOS Tahoe looks. And I look at it and I'm like, yeah, it's got like a floating sidebar and some pill-shaped toolbars. And look, I don't think I'm naive. I don't think I'm stupid. I mean, I've been in this racket for like 16 years at this point. It's kind of there. Right?
It's fine. It's fine. I would argue that in some respects it's better because
it's nicer.
Those pill-shaped shapes around icons on the toolbar are persistent, so it actually gives you a better feel for related actions. I think that works really well with things like Safari extensions.
Yeah. And so I don't really have strong feelings about Liquid Glass on macOS Tahoe. My favorite part of macOS Tahoe is the new shortcut stuff. So the integration with Spotlight and I'm so jealous, the automations. Finally. Not only does it's I guess it's a poetic justice or something like that the Mac finally gets shortcuts automations, and after several years, and they're actually better than the ones on iOS and iPadOS.
So many of the ones that are in there are ones that you and I have talked about over the years on App Stories when we do our shortcuts wish list episodes, which have gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, we're not going to do this episode anymore. Just listen to last year's, because it seemed like none of them were ever going to come true. But now we did get things like, when you mount or unmount a drive, or when you connect a display, or you drop on or off a Wi-Fi network. There's a lot of stuff there. I think the core that people will use are scheduled shortcuts and folder shortcuts, which allow you to, run a shortcut based on a change on the files in a folder, both, which is great and something that's not like a new concept on the Mac, but it's really new. It's brand new to shortcuts. I think the two things I would mention to you about Spotlight that you should try are the quick keys, which lets you assign a keyboard combination to a shortcut or to anything really, any of the actions. And that's really nice because you don't even need to do a modifier. You can just do like, I have one called Fetch Podcast Details, and that was my example in the review, which is that I can just type, I can summon Spotlight and then type FP return, and it launches the shortcut, which is really nice. And the other thing is how when you don't really know where something is in a menu on the Mac, you can go into help and you can do search, and it'll show you where it is in the menu system. you can access menu items directly from Spotlight now. So, if you want to print something or you want to, like, I don't know, select everything or something specific to a particular app, you can do all of that from Spotlight now too.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm very jealous of the new Spotlight. And I am also very jealous of the new Control Center as it relates to customizing your menu bar. I really hope that both of these features eventually find their way to the iPad. But I'll give you one more, John. I know that this is an unpopular opinion if you're Craig Federighi. But I do think these two devices are going to converge in the near future. I think all the signs are there, including a rumor as of yesterday by friend of the show, Ming-Chi Kuo, now a very active user on Twitter, or X, the Everything app, saying that the 2026 OLED MacBook Pro, late 2026, is going to have a touch screen. I mean, okay, let's face it, all right? At this point, if you're Apple and you've been making these two devices, these two platforms for such a long time, and people were always telling you, hey, are you making a hybrid laptop? Hey, are you making a hybrid laptop? And you're like, no, we're not going to merge. No, iPadOS, macOS, no, they're going to be different. And we're like, all right, fine, you're not doing it. And then over the past few years, slowly but surely, these two platforms are falling in love with each other all of a sudden.
Yeah.
They're borrowing from each other. They're sharing UI. They're sharing apps. They're sharing window design. Now they're sharing window buttons. They're basically partners at this point, these two operating systems. And now you're making them exactly the same in iPadOS 26. You're giving the iPad a menu bar, although it's kind of a baby menu bar, not the real thing. But it's basically the iPad has learned a whole bunch of tricks from the Mac. And now this rumor and obviously in the process, the Mac has learned a whole bunch of tricks from the iPad. And now this rumor is saying, well, Apple is going to make a touch Mac. Now, do we really, here's my question for you, John. Do we realistically think that 15, so give it another 15 years, all right? The iPad is 15 at this point, 2020, 2025, 15 years of iPad. Do you imagine another 15 years of iPad as its own standalone iPad? Or do you imagine a scenario where the two things are, despite what was said years ago, are going to merge?
As skeptical as I kind of am of that rumor, I do see them merging within 15 years. I do think that is where this is headed. And I have a question back to you, Federico.
Okay.
What do you think is harder to do, to bring windowing to the iPad or to bring touch to the Mac?
Has to be touch to the Mac.
I would think so too.
Because you are starting from a much older foundation where... And sure, I mean, Apple has been on a trajectory, you know this, because you've been doing, this was your 7th macOS review?
No, we had, I posted this on Mastodon. I think it's a 9th.
9th, okay.
Yeah.
You've been covering this for almost a decade then.
Yep.
And we've seen Apple progressively refine macOS to make touch targets bigger, simplify, make it very similar to how things work on iOS and iPadOS. But there are still plenty of elements on macOS that require touch. But really, the biggest challenge is, it depends if you're thinking that you're making a laptop with a touch screen. That's a conversation. It's another conversation if you're thinking that they're making a Mac with a detachable touch screen. Because at that point, like the computer, is it inside the keyboard or is it inside the display? And I'll give you one more, John, which is this company literally just made a phone where the entire computer is in the camera bump.
I was thinking about. I was thinking exactly the same thing. And even if it's a MacBook Pro and requires more than just what could fit around a camera bump, it's at this point, it's probably getting to the size where it could fit in the screen.
To bring it back to where we started with the Mac Stories reviews, What
Yeah.
Apple is doing here reminds me of what you and I were doing years ago, where you and I, we were working on the iOS and the macOS review, and each of us, we would write about the same apps twice. I would
Yes.
do it in my review, you would do it in your review, and we were doing the same thing twice. I would write about notes in mine, and you would say, yes, and in notes this year on macOS, like the same features. And it seems
Yep.
to me like to an extent, Apple is doing that with the iPad and the Mac. Like they're building the same stuff now, more similar than ever in two places. And sure, those are two very distinct hardware experiences at this point. And I mean, I love the iPad, but also, are they really that different?
And just like it no longer made sense for you and I to be writing about the same things twice, it's probably not, it doesn't make as much sense for Apple to be developing the same things twice.
And I get it. And I get it. Why, you're against the idea now because you think, well, but I don't want to lose what makes the iPad the iPad. And if you're a Mac person,
Right.
you would say, well, but I don't want to lose what makes the Mac the Mac.
Right.
But my question would be, okay, but do you think that in 15 years, do you think, or let me actually phrase it like that. Do you think that in 2040,
Wow.
yeah, I know, in 2040, will you still be purchasing a Mac and an iPad? I don't think you will. I don't think you
Yeah.
will. So
Yeah, I think you're right. Hey, Federico, can I tell you a Tahoe bug story?
yes, I wanted to know this before we move on. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I want everybody to know about this because this has been probably the hardest bug I've ever tracked down on the Mac. While I was using Tahoe over the summer, literally the first or second beta that I tried, I saw 2 third-party controls show up in my control center, or at least in the gallery that I could add to my control center, which were for Music Harbor by Marcos Tanaka and Sequel, which is the media tracking app. And I thought, oh, good. It's nice to see, that Marcus and Roman are both like on the ball and they've got these things there. And I can't wait to see what they're doing with them. And then the public beta came out and those 2 controls disappeared. And I thought, oh, well, this is probably one of those Apple things where it was like not quite ready for public consumption. So it'll show up again later. Well, they never showed up again. And I had nothing. And I started asking around. I talked to Jason, I talked to Steven, I talked to a bunch of people to see if they had been seeing third-party controls, and they really hadn't. And then I talked to you, and you said, oh, yeah, I've got one for drafts. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And at the time, I didn't have the drafts beta, so I grabbed the drafts beta, and sure enough, I saw the drafts control, and that was it. And this is like the first few days of September, about 2 weeks out from the release. And I started talking to developers then and trying to get a sense for, are these just not being supported? Are people not into this? And I found a mixed bag of people who were either not supporting it, who were struggling with supporting it. And so it wasn't clear to me at all what was going on. And then very shortly before the betas came out, I found a second control, which was for ScreenFloat, which is a screenshot utility app. And I thought, well, it must, because those 2 were showing up, it must not be broken. It must not be a bug in Mac OS. It must just be the developers either aren't supporting it or having difficulty supporting it. And so that's what I wrote in my review, essentially, was that, I only was seeing 2 and I hoped I would see more. And not long after I put out my review, I heard from one of the developers I had been talking to on and off for quite a while about this, and was told that there was a trick to make them show up. And the
you
trick,
won't believe this trick.
this trick is fascinating to me because in retrospect, it both makes sense, but it's also something I don't think anybody would necessarily try, which is you had to open not the control center gallery, you have to open the widget gallery. And when you open the widget gallery, if you go into your desktop and you right click and you select edit widgets, it opens the widget gallery, and then it will refresh your control center gallery and you'll see all the apps. The moment I did it, I had 27 third-party apps with controls.
Wow.
Because as part of this, trying to track this down, one day I sat down and I installed like 50 apps. I went and made sure I had the latest beta of every single Mac app that I had been shared with me. And I still didn't see anything, even after, restarting and trying a bunch of other things. And it wasn't until I opened this widget gallery that everything showed up. So that's the trick for anybody who is not seeing many controls in Tahoe. I think what's going on, I think the reason I did see drafts and ScreenFloat, which kind of threw me off the trail a little bit, is that those are Mac-only apps, whereas most of the betas I had were universal. They were all part of a package. Whatever, for some reason, that seems to make a difference, because that's the only distinction I can think of between drafts, ScreenFloat, and everything else I was trying. And I guess the explanation here, I mean, it's obviously a bug, but the reason I think the widget gallery seems to shake loose everything in Control Center is that they're all built on the same underlying app intense technology. There's something going on where, Control Center is just not refreshing the gallery like it should when you open it, but this related gallery does.
That is an incredible finding.
So I had some help along the way. I would never have found it if I hadn't talked to one of these developers privately about it. But now a lot of developers are sharing the article online because it's a customer support issue for them, because people, you look in in their notes and it says, oh, we've got controls for the Mac, and people are like, I don't see them. They're there. They're just not easy to get to.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. So whether you're just starting out with a new project or maybe you're scaling your business up, Squarespace gives you everything you need to claim a domain name, showcase your offerings with a professional website, grow your brand, and get paid all in one place. I've been building on Squarespace since the beginning of time, and I keep choosing it over and over because these tools are really good. One of my favorite things is that you don't have to have your entire site ready on day one. So maybe you're just starting a small project and you just need simple gallery, maybe an about page, but then you get down the road and you open a physical location. Well, it's easy to have a contact page with a map or an online store or a blog or a video gallery. It's great to build these pieces as your project grows. And you can get discovered quickly with integrated SEO tools. Nobody wants to build a beautiful website only for no one to see it. That's why every Squarespace site is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, an auto-generated sitemap, and more, so more people find your site through search engine results. And you can keep track of that with the built-in analytics. Keep track of the stats that matter with intuitive built-in tools. It makes it super easy to review website traffic, learn where to focus engagement, and track revenue from bookings, invoices, or product sales. Head on over to squarespace.com/connected for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code CONNECTED to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. That's squarespace.com/connected and the offer code CONNECTED to get 10% off your first purchase and to show your support for this, your favorite podcast. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of the show and all of Relay.
Federico, I want to talk to you today about our relationships with our iPhones.
Ooh,
And I think we could,
that's a tough one.
and how it's maybe changed over time. Because I was thinking about this a little bit. I was thinking about this in the context of our friend Brendan Bigley, who left his day job, like 6 months ago. He used to work in marketing at Disney and Marvel. And now he's doing his own thing at wavelengths.online. And I know that Brendan, when he was working in Manhattan, would do a lot of what I used to do when I commuted into Chicago, which is that he would work on his phone, which to me is not the ideal place to work. However, if you're in a commuting situation on a subway or a train or whatever, it actually is incredibly doable. I mean, I remember back in talking to Brendan about this stuff. I remember back to the early days when I was writing at Mac Stories, 2015, 2016, and I was still commuting downtown. And I had, roughly anywhere from like a 25 to 40-minute train ride. I would sit down, grab a seat if I could, and I would just bang out stories on my phone and do research and flip between apps and all that stuff. And usually I got to the point where if it wasn't a long story, I could kind of bang something out on the train and get it posted, like a link post or a very short news post, not like a review or anything. But I used to do that a lot. But then I started working from home and the iPhone became a lot less important to me. It was always a media device for me alongside a way that I got work done, but it became more of an in-between spaces device, by which I mean, maybe I'm running errands or doing chores and I'm listening to a podcast or some music, or I'm waiting in a line at the grocery store and I think of something that I want to do when I get home. So I drop it in Todoist or Reminders or some other task manager, or I read a few articles when I have spare time while I'm eating lunch, or I watch a YouTube video, share the link into Good Links or whatever it is. And it becomes it's become in that way a very much an in-between places type of device. Whereas typically if I'm doing work, I'm usually sitting either at a desk or with a laptop or even my iPad. But the phone is not where I get work done. Now the phone is like a supplement to those things, as well as just kind of an entertainment device.
Yeah, this is a complex question.
It is.
I've always been, I've been writing Mac Stories since 2009. And obviously the iPhone at the beginning used to be, and I feel so old saying this, but it used to be this hot new thing. 2009, the App Store was 1 year old. We were all downloading iBeer and fart apps and stupid stuff it was novel, it was fun. It was the golden age of making apps, for this device. And so the iPhone not only was like a revolutionary device, but it was also like this big deal and this like new interesting toy that I would use as a way to think about content I could write. And everything was new. Everything felt new, like the first RSS reader, the first third-party email client. Do you remember, John? The third-party email clients were not allowed up until a certain point.
Right. Wow, didn't even have copy paste in the early
Didn't
days.
have copy and paste. Things like, I remember when it became a big deal that third-party developers could make a Dropbox-based text editor with Dropbox sync.
That's
built
true.
in. Like the first Elements app by Justin Williams. Oh my God, that's such a throwback.
Yeah, because there was no file system.
There was no files. There was no
sense.
iCloud Drive. There was
nowhere to save your text documents, but cloud storage allowed that to happen. Yeah.
And so initially everything was new. Everything felt new. And then of course, life happened and the iPhone became the norm, became normal, became an everyday. It became the smartphone. It became what it is today. And so over the years, my iPhone usage has become more normal, like everybody else. And I think, realistically speaking, I have been considering the iPad my work device. Like I as you know, I have been working from the iPad for such a long time, and I've taken the iPad through its many variations with me over the years. I worked with an iPad from the hospital, from my car, from the beach house, during vacation, at WWDC, in airplane seats, in airport lounges, like in other places. I have worked with the iPad. And the iPad has been also my media consumption device. As a tablet, I love using the iPad Pro as a tablet, when I'm watching a TV show or reading an article, or reading a book or watching YouTube videos. Increasingly, though, I have felt that the iPhone can also be my media device. And this is where
Yeah.
I think if I were to consider my relationship with the iPhone, I think it's a pretty normal relationship. I love taking pictures with it. I It's always with me. Occasionally, if I want to, I can type out a quick blog post from my iPhone, which I have done. I have all my shortcuts, all of my automations are cross-platform. They work on iOS, iPadOS, macOS. I have blogged from my iPhone, even as of a few weeks ago. I have posted quick links on Mac Stories from my phone. But I've noticed one thing that is occurring now that I want to mention, and one thing that I
Okay.
think will occur in the future. The thing that is occurring now is that I have noticed something that I've been doing. I like to kick off long running LLM agentic tasks on my iPhone and leave them running on the iPhone while I'm doing something else. Like, for example,
Interesting.
right now, as I'm talking, Claude on my phone is looking at my email inbox and it's doing its thing, for several minutes. I just leave it running on the phone while I'm doing something else around the house, for example. And maybe I'm listening to a podcast also from my iPhone, but the Claude app is running on the phone doing its thing. So that idea of like it's a pocket computer where you can leave AI tasks running in the background, I don't know. There's something interesting there. But the future thing, I feel like my relationship with my iPhone will change dramatically next year with the folding one. I
Yeah,
think
I agree.
looking ahead at the future, I think me getting the iPhone Air this year will be an interesting test to see, am I going to use a lightweight, thinner iPhone more for tasks like reading articles or watching videos in bed than I would typically use an iPad for? Am I going to use an iPhone Air for that? And if Apple is going to make a foldable iPhone next year, how much of that is going to eat into my usage of the iPad? That would be an interesting evolution, almost going into almost 20 years of iPhone. Can the iPhone become something more than a phone? Can it replace some of the tasks that I typically perform on my iPad? So that I think will be the interesting potential future change.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We already just got done talking about how the Mac turning into the iPad in a way, and now we're talking about the iPhone turning into the iPad. I mean, I think there's a lot of cross pollination that could potentially happen there. I agree with you with a foldable phone. To me, if it has the capabilities of an iPad, I could see myself carrying that and a small foldable keyboard and going off and typing
Mm.
up stories that way. I mean, I remember vividly, probably in 2015 or 2016, sitting in traffic in the back of a cab in Manhattan, going to some lawyer meeting where I was doing a roundup of iPhone reviews for Mac Stories. And I was doing it on my phone. And that was the peak of my iPhone writing period. I was a latecomer to the iPhone because, I was a lawyer in the 90s. Everybody had a BlackBerry. I was like, I always had the cutting edge BlackBerry, Federico.
Wow.
And so for a lot of years, I
I
had,
I I would pay so much money to be able to step into a time machine and observe you, a young, promising lawyer with your BlackBerry, at some point in the mid '90s or early
yeah.
2000s.
Oh, I was a
See
90s lawyer
younger
guy.
John in his element at the time.
Yeah,
Man.
for sure. And so in those days, I was an iPod Touch user because I still wanted to have the apps. And I learned like I would take the train out of Chicago back to the suburbs. And as it would pull into a station, I had figured out the Wi-Fi passwords for all the coffee shops and other businesses near the train stops. And so I would jump onto the Wi-Fi in the period when people are getting on and off the train to refresh my Instapaper and all things like that as I commuted out because I didn't have a mobile phone connection. I didn't have a mobile network on an iPod Touch. And it wasn't until the iPhone 4 that I actually got an iPhone. And from there on out, I was using the iPhone. But Yeah, it's interesting to think about how it's changed over time. To me, it's become the iPhone is a very utilitarian device now, and it's lost a lot of that magic of the early years. I still love the iPhone. I still think it's like a little tiny miracle that we have this
Mm.
computer in our pockets. But I also kind of take it for granted these days too.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Fitbod. When you want to change your fitness level, it can be hard to know where to start. That's why I'm pleased to let you know that Fitbod is an easy and affordable way to build a fitness plan just for you. Everyone's fitness path is different, which is why Fitbod uses real data to make sure they're customizing things exactly to suit you, adapting as you improve, so each workout will be challenging, pushing you to make the progress you want. Superior results are achieved when a workout program is tailored to your unique body, experience, environment, and goals, which are all stored in your Fitbod gym profile. Fitbod tracks your muscle recovery so you can avoid burnout and keep up your momentum. And it builds the best possible workout by combining AI with exercise science. They've analyzed billions of data points that have been fine-tuned by certified personal trainers. And you can be sure you're learning new movements the right way thanks to more than 1,000 demonstration videos built into the app. Muscles improve when working in concert with the entire muscular system, so overworking some muscles while underworking others can negatively impact results. That's why Fitbod tracks muscle fatigue and recovery to design a well-balanced workout routine, which also means you're never going to get bored, as the app mixes up your workouts with new exercises, rep schemes, supersets, and circuits. And all of this is easy to use. You can stay informed with Fitbod's progress tracking charts, weekly reports, and sharing cards, letting you keep track of your achievements and personal best and then share them with friends and family. And it integrates with your Apple Watch, Wear OS smartwatch, and apps like Strava, Fitbit, and Apple Health. I mentioned those videos a second ago. I think that's a great part of Fitbod. I want to make sure I'm doing things correctly, and those videos give me a lot of confidence that I am. Personalized training of this quality can be expensive, but Fitbod is just $15.99 a month or $95.99 a year. But you can get 25% off your membership by signing up at fitbod.me/connected. So go now and get your customized fitness plan at fitbod.me/connected. That's FITBOD, fitbod.me/connected for 25% off your membership. Our thanks to Fitbod for their support of the show and all of Relay.
All right, John, to close this episode, I want to do something terrible. Like, I actually want to do something nasty here,
Okay, what's that?
which is I want to design me and you together. We're gonna put on our best Alan Dye impression, and we are going to design an Apple gaming console.
Oh, I love it.
Can
I
we
love
make it good?
This
Can we
is-
make it terrible? Can we make it absolutely nasty as a product? Yes.
Oh, I think we can both do something amazing and something just absolutely awful at the same time.
Okay. So let's just brainstorm some ideas, I guess, and we can come to a decision. First of all, portable or not portable?
Well, I want to do both because I feel
So they're
like
making two consoles. So they're making a home one and a portable one.
They are because I don't think they're going to do like the docking portable. I think what we're going to do as Apple designers is we know better, Federico.
Right.
We are going to make an Apple TV adjacent box that can, run laps around the PS5 and the Xbox Series S.
Okay. So we're gonna make something for the home.
Yes.
Okay. So it's gonna be a home console. First of all, what do we name it? Apple Game.
No, games plural, because
Apple
we've
Oh,
got
so
to make it.
yes, because people
We
have
need
to
to
be
make it
confused. Yes.
Yes, they do. They have to be completely confused between the app and the
Right.
device.
Just like Apple TV. Everything is
And so that you and I can write articles about how the games app on the games is buggy in 2027.
Yes. So we're going to call it Apple Games. You can buy the latest version of Apple. Yes. So it's called Apple Games. Does it have a shape? I mean, it's got to have a shape.
It's got to have a shape. I think that we're going to do it. I think we're just going to take the Apple TV and we're going to make it a disc instead of a square puck.
Why is it a disc? Oh, because of the concentricity of liquid glass or something. Like it's got to be concentric. So it's going to be disc shaped. Okay.
Yes.
I love it. So it's digital only, right? So no physical games, App Store
Right.
only.
Yes.
So I would say App Store only, no side loading.
Yeah, oh yeah, no way. No ports whatsoever. No USB or anything like that.
No, no ports.
No port. Well,
No
let's
ports.
Give it,
You're
let's
right.
give
No.
it, we got to give it Ethernet, don't we?
Okay, we gotta give it Ethernet, but
gotta give it Ethernet
the
power.
Ethernet version is more expensive.
Okay, and it's got to have HDMI, but it can't be HDMI 2.1 or whatever the latest is. It has to be at least one generation older because
Right.
we're cutting because of supply chain. We want to get a cheaper part so we can get better margins.
Right. It's HDMI 2.
Right.
So it's HDMI 2. So it doesn't really do 4K. Oh, but no.
Doesn't really do HDR then either, does it?
Oh no. I mean,
I
Apple
forget.
loves HDR though.
I know they do.
So it's
That
gotta be 2.1, but not the latest 2.1.
Let's make it 2.1, but we won't release it until 2.2 is out.
Okay. Right.
Just to make everybody unhappy.
Right. Okay. And I think the controversy will be that it doesn't ship with an HDMI 2.1 cable in the box.
No, absolutely not. Power cable is all you get.
No cable in the box. I'm writing all this down. Then later we can.
I know.
We can run through
You're
the
good.
list.
You're good with your typing.
So okay. To Ethernet is more expensive. HDMI 2.1, a cable in the box. Does it come in colors or just one color?
I think it's black. I was going to say, I think we want it to disappear under the TV, just like the Apple TV does.
Okay. Now, so you're gonna purchase this thing, and I mean, now the controller. How do we deal with the controller?
Yeah, I can't wait to get to the software. I have lots of ideas there. The controller.
Yeah. Okay.
To me,
So we gotta get to the controller and the software. Let's do the controller. How do you play these games?
So these games are played on a controller that
Has no buttons.
no, it harkens. It's all touchpads,
I mean,
touchpads and gyroscopes.
that is that
No, it can't be that. Federico. It just can't.
touch-based haptic feedback and gyroscope.
Okay. Yeah.
No?
I mean, look. In an ideal world, it would work a lot like the AirPods. It would have a layer on top of Bluetooth that allowed for low latency connections so that you could have, so the triggers and buttons worked really well. I mean, that is something that I've always wanted from Apple, and I've mentioned over and over again on App Stories. Maybe it would have no buttons, but boy, I hope it has good connection using Apple's, local area networking connections.
But if we're Apple and we think that we know better than anybody else, I think the discussion we would be having is, what if we reimagined the controller?
Hear me out. What if we made it look like the Pippin controllers?
Okay, so what did the Pippin controller look like?
I have to look.
Apple.
I have a vague idea in my head.
Pippin.
They're shaped like the moon. They're shaped like a crescent moon.
Oh yeah, it's shaped like. Do you remember? Are you familiar with the original banana prototype for the PlayStation 3 controller?
Oh, vaguely, yes, I do remember.
The banana DualShock for the PS3. That was.
This is not a good shape.
Yeah.
But maybe we could design it in a way that gave it some Pippin vibes.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that if Apple were to make the controller, they would use like a totally different button layout than the rest of the industry. So that if you wanted to make a game for Apple Games, you would need to completely rethink the control scheme because
And
Apple.
they put the D-pad on the right and the buttons on the left.
Oh my god. Okay, that's
That would
interesting.
be horrible.
Okay, that's interesting. They would do a D-pad on the right and the buttons on the left. What if instead of doing buttons with symbols, like, PlayStation has the shapes and the other folks have the letters, what if they did like symbols and letters? Like both of them. Like there would be a button with, I don't know, like an X symbol and then the label action. and then there would be, because Apple could say, and now we're making games even simpler because you're always going to have a consistent set of buttons. You're always going to have your action button and your run button and your observe button, like making the games consistent everywhere.
Right, and completely hemming in developers so that they couldn't make the games they want, because they'd always have to have the shoot button would always have to be the one on the top, and the jump button would always have to be the one on the bottom. Yeah, well, and I think we're gonna design a series of SF symbols where it's just like a little person.
Okay.
A little person jumping, and another one with like a little ray gun shooting, and another one. Even we could even put them on the sticks. We could put SF symbols on the sticks. Why not?
The controller has buttons.
The one from...
The controller has buttons.
Yes.
But they have both symbols and text labels on them.
Yes. I'm still looking at the Pippin controller.
And text labels on them.
Inspiration here.
And they're based SF symbols.
The Pippin controller had a track wheel.
Yeah, I know. Also, the sticks have
wild
symbols on them.
Okay.
This is horrible. This is terrible.
But it's all okay because it works on the same technology as the AirPods, so it's really low latency.
Okay, so it's low latency and can be paired. Can it be paired to other devices?
Oh my gosh, Federico. Yeah. Sure, it can be used with an iPhone and iPad. Okay. I know I'm skipping ahead to software, but what if you shook the controller to quit your game?
You what?
You shake the controller, just like you shake the iPhone to undo. Shake the controller to quit the game.
The controller supports shake to quit.
Shake to quit.
Shake to quit a game. Okay, talking about the software. Here's my pitch, okay?
All right. Game
widgets. You have a home screen on this device. The home view of Apple games is a home screen where you have the icons for your games, but also the widgets for the games. And the widgets they show you the part of the game where you left off on your home screen.
I was going to ask you if the widgets were playable games themselves, but I like the idea. I like the idea of them being like bookmarks, basically, for where you are in the game. I like that one a lot.
Home screen has game icons and widgets.
You know what we're going to do though? We're going to try to repeat the success of the Apple TV, and we're going to ask developers to make all of their games available in the Games app and not as separate tiles in the interface.
Wow.
And then we'll get into a big fight with Epic because Epic won't want to do it.
So Apple games can only
just like the TV app
play. No, hear me say it. Apple games can only play games from games, right?
Yes. Where do you get your games? In games.
On Apple games.
On Apple games. Turn on your Apple games to get your games in games.
Do we? What about storage?
I think we just have to have, just a bunch of soldered on storage, basically.
Yeah, right.
You have to
it's non-expandable.
Yeah, it's just going to be like you're going to have one option that's way too small. One option
you have a
256 maybe
default.
Yeah.
And then you can choose for the 1 terabyte one.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe you can only get, if you want to get the Ethernet model, that is only the 1 terabyte one.
Yes.
And it's also, so Ethernet is more expensive and it's also on the 1 terabyte model only.
We're gonna make people save their games in iCloud. Their game saves.
Oh yeah. No, but they can only be saved in iCloud. So you have to
Right,
pay for
right.
yeah. Game saves only in iCloud, and
Yeah.
whatever that means, you gotta be an iCloud subscriber. What about subscriptions? There's gotta be a subscription for something.
Yeah, I think that we just bake in arcade. We bake in arcade to this whole thing, and we take a big cut of anybody who wants to sell a game separately.
Mm.
Maybe we rethink the games app and make it difficult to find people's games if they don't play ball and
They're like
be part of arcade.
very like buried in the user interface or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Standalone games are available, but hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But
And we take a big cut of hard to find and we charge a lot.
an Apple
A big tax.
an Apple charges like 40% for them.
Sure.
A 40% cut.
Sure.
Okay, so to give you a recap for this monstrosity that we put together. So it's a home console called Apple Games. It's disc shaped and it comes in two versions. However, there's like a 256 gigabyte default option and a 1 terabyte model option that is more expensive. Yep. However, Ethernet is only available on the 1 terabyte model. It comes in black, and it's got HDMI 2.1, but no HDMI 2.1 cable in the box. There's just a power adapter in the box. And it can only play games from the App Store, does not support side loading at all, and has no USB-C ports. Right. There's a controller which has buttons. These buttons have both symbols and text labels on them, and they're based on SF symbols. And also the joysticks, they have symbols on them too.
Yes.
This controller is low latency and can be paired to other Apple devices. And it comes with a unique feature called Shake to Quit, which allows you to quit a game just by shaking the controller. Now, when you boot up Apple Games, you're taken to a home screen that shows you both game icons and widgets for your games. And the widgets show you where you left off in a game. Your game's progress can only be saved in iCloud. And if you don't have an iCloud account, you cannot save your progress with Apple Games. And the final thing we said is that standalone games are available outside of the Games app, but they're hard to find, and Apple charges a 40% cut for those.
I think it's wonderful. I think this is a miracle of engineering right here. This is design and hardware coming together. It's the intersection, frankly, of liberal arts and technology.
Yes, it's the intersection.
Are we going to design before we leave a quick handheld, Federico?
Yeah, the handheld.
I have fewer ideas for a handheld. Because I keep thinking about an iPhone in a controller.
No, they're not gonna do the handheld. They're gonna do the home console because they have the iPhone.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. I think I'm not inspired by the idea of a handheld.
It's much more inspiring to think of this monster in your living room.
Yeah. And maybe here's a subscription idea for you for our console box. Is that, of course, we're going to bake an Apple TV into the thing too, right? I mean, we're gonna let you watch your shows on this too. Why not? Maybe we've just redesigned the Apple TV is all we've really done. But
there is Apple TV integration. Yeah, for sure.
And of course, Apple Music and all those things.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, we created something horrible.
I think we did.
But
also perfect. I think that the controller is the place where if anything goes sideways badly, it'll be the controller.
Yeah. Well, John, I think we did it. I think we did. This is an episode of Connected. I am going to try my best at closing this episode. First of all, I want to thank our sponsors this week, OpenCase, Squarespace, and Fitbod. You can find all the links that we mentioned in the show notes. Essentially, you're going to find all of the Mac Stories links that we want you to click on at relay.fm/connected/570.
Yeah, feel free to click on those repeatedly if you'd like.
Yes. Set them up, with an automation that clicks on them over and over. If you want to send us feedback, you can do so at connectedfeedback.com, and we would love for you to join Connected Pro, where you can get longer and ad-free episodes of Connected. That is getconnectedpro.co. You can find me and John on MacStories.net, writing, reviewing operating systems, doing all the things we do, running MacStories deals, making shortcuts, making newsletters, all the things. You can find Myke and Steven, this week together in Memphis, and you will be able to watch them.
Track them down.
You can track them down, and you will be able to see them live for the 7th Podcastathon. Is that correct?
Oof.
7th Podcastathon live. I don't have my time zone correct.
Friday at 12 o'clock noon Eastern U.S. time.
Going for 12 hours live in real time. Those two plus a whole bunch of other guests. It's going to be incredible. So that is tomorrow, receive your new iPhone, put on your new AirPods Pro 3 and watch the Podcastathon live for 12 hours. If you get an iPhone Air, you will not be able to watch it for 12 hours because your battery your battery's going to die sooner than that. But I want to thank you, John, for helping me co-hosting this episode of Connected. And we're going to pick a title next because I saved some. But until next time, say goodbye, John.
Goodbye, John.
Arrivederci.